I had counted down to that dinner for 37 days. Not because it was going to be fancy. Not because I expected a cake the size of a wedding or balloons filling the house. I counted down because, for once, it was supposed to be about me. 17 doesn't sound like much to most people. It's not sweet 16 anymore. It's not 18, the big legal milestone. It's the quiet birthday in between, the one that proves you still matter even when there's nothing flashy about you. And I needed that proof more than I ever admitted. I had picked the restaurant myself. Nothing extravagant. Just a cozy Italian place downtown with soft lights and checkered tablecloths. I had walked past it a dozen times with my friends and imagined sitting there, my parents across from me, smiling like I was someone they were proud of. For weeks, my mom told me, "We'll make it special." For weeks, my dad said, "You deserve a nice night." I believed them. That's the part that hurts the most. I believed them. The day of my birthday, I got ready early. I curled my hair 3 different times because I couldn't get it right. I changed outfits twice. I kept checking the time, like if I stared at the clock hard enough, it would move faster. When you grow up feeling second best, you don't get excited easily. You protect yourself. You pretend you don't care so it won't sting later. But that night, I cared. I remember standing in my room, looking at myself in the mirror, thinking, maybe this is the year things change. Maybe this is the year they see me. Downstairs, I could hear movement in the kitchen. My sister, of course, was already talking loudly about something. She was always loud, always glowing, always orbiting at the center of everything. She was 2 years older, fearless, spontaneous, the kind of person teachers adored and strangers remembered. When she entered a room, conversations tilted toward her like flowers turning to the sun. I learned early how to stand slightly behind her. Still, this night was mine. That's what I kept telling myself. At 6:15, I walked downstairs in my dress and heels. My heart was racing in that soft, hopeful way it does when you think something good is about to happen. But the house didn't feel ready. No one was dressed. My mom was at the kitchen table with her phone pressed to her ear. My dad was standing near the counter, rubbing his forehead. My sister was pacing. Something felt wrong. I stopped halfway down the stairs. "Are we leaving soon?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. No one answered immediately. That's when you know. My mom finally hung up the phone and looked at me, not the way you look at someone you're about to celebrate. The way you look at someone you're about to disappoint. "Sweetheart," she started, and I already felt my chest tighten. There is something about the word sweetheart when it's said like that. It means brace yourself. There's been a change of plans. My sister spoke before I could respond. "Okay, so listen," she said quickly, like she was explaining something exciting. "The Europe trip I applied for? The early payment deadline is tonight. If I don't pay, I lose my spot." I stared at her, not understanding why this had anything to do with my birthday dinner. My dad exhaled heavily. "It's a big opportunity." My mom nodded. "And we can always reschedule your dinner, honey." Reschedule. Like it was a dentist appointment. Like it wasn't the one night I had been holding on to for weeks. I looked around the room, waiting for someone to laugh. Waiting for someone to say, "Just kidding." But no one did. The restaurant reservation was canceled. The money that was supposed to cover dinner was being transferred to my sister's travel account. And just like that, my birthday evaporated. The worst part wasn't even the cancellation. It was how normal everyone acted. My sister hugged my mom, squealing. My dad said, "We're proud of you." My mom smiled like this was a beautiful family moment. And I was just there, still in my dress, still wearing heels, still holding on to a night that had already disappeared. "Are you okay?" my mom asked casually, like she was checking if I wanted tea. What was I supposed to say? "No, I'm not okay because my birthday just lost to a plane ticket." "No, I'm not okay because it feels like I keep losing." I nodded. "Yeah, it's fine." Because when you grow up being the quiet one, the reasonable one, the understanding one, you learn to swallow disappointment before anyone sees it. I went back upstairs. I sat on the edge of my bed in my birthday dress while downstairs they celebrated her opportunity. That's when it hit me. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about timing. It was about value. And that night, I learned exactly how much mine was worth. I didn't go back downstairs right away. I sat on my bed, still wearing the dress I had picked so carefully, staring at the door while the sounds of celebration drifted up from the kitchen. Laughter. Excited talking. My sister's voice rising above the rest as she described the cities she would visit, the pictures she would take, the people she would meet. Every word felt like it pushed me further out of my own house. I tried to tell myself I shouldn't be upset, that opportunities mattered, that good siblings were supportive. But the longer I listened, the harder it became to breathe. I realized they hadn't just changed plans, they hadn't even hesitated. Not once had anyone asked me how I felt. Not once had anyone said, maybe we can find another way. The decision had been immediate because, to them, it was obvious whose moment mattered more. I went to the mirror and looked at myself again. For a second, I didn't recognize the person staring back. My eyes looked older, sharper, like something quiet had cracked open. I thought about every birthday before this one, the cakes chosen for her favorite flavor, the parties rearranged around her schedule, the gifts I pretended to love because at least they remembered. I remembered telling friends I didn't really care about birthdays anyway, laughing it off so they wouldn't see the truth. But tonight was different. Tonight they watched me come downstairs dressed and hopeful, and they still chose her without blinking. The realization burned hotter than embarrassment. It burned into anger. I walked back down the stairs slowly, not because I was calm, but because I didn't trust what would happen if I rushed. They were gathered around the table looking at a laptop, my parents leaning close while my sister showed them the payment screen. My dad's hand rested proudly on her shoulder. My mom kept smiling the way she does when she's convinced she's doing the right thing. No one noticed me until I spoke. So that's it? My voice came out steadier than I felt. We're just not doing my birthday? 3 heads turned toward me. My sister blinked, surprised more by my interruption than my question. We said we'll celebrate later, she replied quickly, as if repeating it made it generous. Later. The word echoed. Later meant never in our house. You didn't even ask me, I said. You just decided. My dad sighed, already impatient. Don't make this a big deal. This deadline can't wait. I felt heat rise into my face. My birthday couldn't wait either. My mom stood up and took a step toward me, voice soft in that practiced calming tone. Honey, you're mature enough to understand. Your sister worked really hard for this opportunity. There it was, the familiar script. She earns. I understand. I laughed once, short and sharp. I work hard too. I just don't get opportunities. My sister's expression tightened. Why are you acting like I did something to you? I didn't choose the deadline. No, I said, my hands trembling. You just let them choose you. Again. The room went quiet. I could see the irritation forming on my dad's face, the warning look that usually made me stop talking. But something had shifted. For years I had swallowed these moments to keep the peace, to be the easy child, the grateful child. Tonight the words refused to stay down. I stood upstairs getting ready. I continued, voice shaking now but louder. Thinking maybe this year you actually wanted to celebrate me. You watched me walk down those stairs and you still canceled it. Do you know how that feels? My mom opened her mouth, then closed it again. For the first time, she didn't have an immediate answer. My sister crossed her arms defensively. You're overreacting. It's just dinner. No, I said quietly. It's not just dinner. It's every time I come second. It's every time you get the moment and I get told to be understanding. My dad's patience snapped. Enough. We're not arguing about this tonight. But that was the point. They never wanted to argue, because arguing meant admitting there was something to argue about. Silence had always been easier for them, and expected from me. I felt tears sting my eyes, but the anger held them back. You already decided tonight wasn't mine, I said. You don't get to decide I can't talk about it too. No one spoke for several seconds. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator and the ticking clock on the wall. For once, the center of attention wasn't her excitement, it was my hurt, sitting heavy in the middle of the room, and they didn't know what to do with it. After that, no one said anything important again. The conversation dissolved into small defensive comments, the kind families use when they want a moment to end without actually fixing it. My dad muttered that we'd talk later. My mom told me I was emotional because it was my birthday. My sister stopped looking at me entirely and focused back on the screen like I'd already faded into the background again. And somehow that hurt more than the argument itself. It meant nothing I said had changed anything. The decision was still standing. The night was still gone. I didn't yell again. I didn't slam a door. I just turned and walked back upstairs, each step heavier than the last. Down in the kitchen, the celebration slowly restarted, quieter this time, but still there. I heard my mom's voice asking my sister what dates she preferred. I heard my dad say, "You earned this." I heard a laugh. A real laugh. And that was when the tears finally came, because the world had already moved on while I was still stuck inside the moment. I sat on my bed, careful not to wrinkle the dress, like preserving it might somehow preserve the night that was supposed to exist. My phone buzzed with birthday messages from friends, cake emojis, inside jokes, plans they assumed I was out enjoying. I typed back simple thank yous and smiley faces because explaining the truth felt heavier than pretending. Pretending had always been easier. Pretending meant no one pitied you. Pretending meant maybe, if you acted unhurt long enough, you would stop hurting. But alone in my room, the pretending collapsed. I kept replaying the scene in my head, the way my mom said reschedule so casually, the way my sister never once said sorry, the way my dad looked relieved when I stopped arguing. I realized they weren't cruel in a dramatic way, they were calm about it, certain. To them, this was logical. Of course the trip mattered more. Of course I would understand. That quiet certainty carved deeper than shouting ever could. I kicked off my shoes and curled my legs beneath me. The mirror across the room reflected the soft yellow light, and the person sitting in it, makeup still done, hair still curled, nowhere to go. I thought about changing out of the dress, but I didn't. Part of me needed proof the night had been real, that I hadn't imagined wanting it. So I stayed like that, a dressed-up version of someone who hadn't been chosen. Hours passed. The house eventually fell silent. Doors closed. Water ran through pipes. A television murmured, and then stopped. Midnight came without cake, without candles, without anyone knocking on my door to say goodnight or happy birthday again. The day simply ended, unnoticed except by me. That was when the sadness settled fully. Not sharp like anger, but heavy, like something placed gently on your chest that you realize won't be lifted anytime soon. I thought about all the little compromises over the years, sharing celebrations, changing plans, being flexible, and how I'd convinced myself they were normal. Tonight proved they weren't temporary. They were expected. I wasn't overlooked by accident. I was easy to move. I lay back on the bed, still dressed, and stared at the ceiling. A memory surfaced from when I was younger, maybe 8 or 9, blowing out candles while my sister helped me because the flames were too many. Everyone laughed. I remembered feeling important for a moment, held inside a tension that didn't belong to someone else. I tried to hold on to that memory now, but it felt distant, like something that happened to a different child. My phone buzzed once more just after midnight. A new message from my mom. "We'll celebrate this weekend, okay? Love you." The words were gentle, but they landed hollow, not because she didn't mean them, but because she didn't understand what had been lost. The dinner could be moved. The reservation could be remade. But the moment the one where they chose couldn't. I turned the screen off without replying and pulled the blanket over me. In the quiet dark, the house finally felt empty, even though everyone was still inside it. And I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit before. You don't always feel alone when people leave. Sometimes you feel alone when they stay and still don't see you. I thought that was the end of it. I thought the lesson of the night was simple. My birthday didn't matter. My sister's trip did. And life would quietly go back to normal in the morning. Families do that. Sometimes they hurt you, then continue like nothing happened until you doubt your own memory of the pain. But the next day didn't feel normal. No one mentioned the argument at breakfast. My dad read the news. My mom made coffee. My sister talked about packing lists like she hadn't watched me walk away in tears 12 hours earlier. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was careful. Like everyone had agreed not to touch the broken glass in the middle of the room. I kept waiting for someone to say, "We're sorry." No one did. By afternoon, I had stopped expecting it. I told myself I'd just survive the weekend and move on. Maybe they really would do dinner later. Maybe pretending it didn't matter would eventually make it true. Then the doorbell rang. My mom frowned. "Were you expecting someone?" I shook my head. My dad opened the door and froze. Standing outside was the manager from the restaurant. Behind him, two servers carried a box almost as wide as the doorway. The smell hit first warm bread, garlic, melted cheese, the same smell I'd imagined for weeks. "I'm looking for you," the manager said, checking his phone and then looking directly at me. "Reservation for last night?" My chest tightened. "We canceled." He smiled gently. "Actually, it was already paid for. Non-refundable. The person who booked it asked us to deliver everything if you didn't show." The room went silent. The box opened on the kitchen counter. Inside were containers carefully labeled pasta, salad, dessert, and in the center, a small cake with uneven frosting and slightly crooked writing. "Happy birthday, don't let them forget you matter." I stared at it, confused. "Who paid for this?" The manager turned his phone toward me. A name sat at the top of the order confirmation. Not my parents. Not my sister. It was Mrs. Keller, my old middle school art teacher. My mind struggled to catch up. I hadn't seen her in almost a year. Then I remembered. Weeks ago, I'd mentioned the dinner when I ran into her at the grocery store. I told her I was excited. I didn't think she'd remember. "She called this morning," the manager explained softly. "She was worried you never showed up." For a moment, no one spoke. My sister looked uncomfortable. My mom's expression shifted, not guilt exactly, but something close to it. My dad rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes. And I stood there staring at a cake paid for by someone who didn't even live in my house. That was the surprise. Not the food, not the delivery. The realization. A person who only knew me for 1 hour a day in 7th grade remembered my birthday mattered while the people who lived with me didn't notice losing it. Something inside me settled into place. Not anger this time. Not sadness either. Just clarity. I lit one candle from the drawer and placed it in the cake. My hands weren't shaking anymore. No one tried to stop me. I made a wish, but it wasn't about better birthdays or fairness or even apologies. It was about understanding. I blew out the candle and looked up at my family. "I think," I said quietly, "I finally know what I'm expecting from people." They didn't know what to say. Maybe there was nothing left to say. Because sometimes the loudest moment isn't a fight or a slammed door. Sometimes it's the second you realize love isn't proven by who lives in your house, but by who shows up when you don't even ask them to.